Welcome back to The Ambassadors. I'm thrilled to dive into today's topic with you. Let's get right into it.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking Ambassador David F. Nwafulu's concept of holy boldness, and we're going to trace exactly how this single theological idea fuels a massive modern global ministry. You know, it's absolutely fascinating to see how a deeply specific spiritual teaching can be translated into a worldwide organizational engine. We are going to look at the exact blueprint of how that happens.
Here's what we're covering today. First, defining holy boldness. Then, checking out some examples from Scripture. Looking at the steps for modern application. And finally, exploring the ministry's global outreach. Let's dive right in.
Section 1. Defining holy boldness. To kick things off, we absolutely have to understand the foundation of the author's daily devotional text. Literally everything else we're going to look at today, the global reach, the midnight networks, it's all built entirely on this one foundational concept.
So what exactly is holy boldness? The text opens by addressing this very specific spiritual question, which acts as the bedrock of the entire ministry. When you hear the word boldness, you might just think of everyday courage, right? Like a lack of fear. But within the context of this ministry's teachings, it means something far more specific. The author points out that this isn't just basic human bravery. Instead, holy boldness is a specific spiritual formula. According to the text, courage and faith must be combined with holiness to achieve supernatural results, what the author refers to as signs and wonders. It's an active spiritual posture. If you're missing even one of those three ingredients, the whole formula just doesn't work.
The text draws a really stark contrast here that we need to point out. It explicitly warns that having courage without sanctification, without that core holiness, is mere presumption. It's essentially empty bravado, not true spiritual power. On the flip side, boldness with holiness ensures supernatural results because it aligns perfectly with God's authority. This distinction is completely vital for understanding the mindset they're teaching their followers.
Moving on to Section 2. Examples from Scripture. To ground this formula in historical precedent, the text doesn't rely on modern anecdotes at all. It points directly to the Bible.
The overarching theme of courage is anchored in this foundational command from Deuteronomy chapter 31. The message here is loud and clear. The boldness being taught isn't self-generated. The believer is commanded not to fear simply because they are assured that God goes with them and won't fail them.
The author uses some incredible micro-narratives to really hammer this home. Take Peter and John in the early church. The text notes their confidence didn't come from personal intellect or some natural charisma, but from their profound intimacy with Christ. Then there's the dramatic story of Elijah on Mount Carmel, standing completely alone against the prophets of Baal, his unwavering faith resulting in literal fire from heaven. The core lesson the author extracts is that true confidence stems from total dependence on God.
All right, Section 3, Steps to Modern Application. Let's see how this builds from those ancient biblical accounts to highly specific instructions for the modern believer today. How does someone actually practice this?
Well, according to the text, the main hurdle today is fear. Fear of what others think, fear of criticism, or just fear of outright failure. This hesitation restrains ministry. The teaching insists that believers have to intentionally and aggressively step out in faith to shatter those doubts. Only by overcoming this modern hesitation can miracles become visible in the everyday world.
To overcome that fear, the ministry lays out 3 mandatory steps of preparation: prayer, word study, and consecration. You can't just wake up and decide to be bold out of nowhere. You need active prayer, dedicated study of the Word, and consecration, which means dedicating yourself entirely to a sacred purpose. The text insists that without this behind-the-scenes prep work, any public display of courage is completely hollow.
And that brings us to Section 4, the ministry's global outreach. How does this ministry put this bold theology into practice on a massive, macroscopic level? It's one thing to teach an individual to be bold, but it's entirely another to structure an international organization around it. Think about this incredible figure for a second. 500 million. To put that into perspective, that is roughly 1 out of every 16 people on planet Earth. This represents Operation 500 million souls for Christ for all nations. It's the massive, real-world goal driven directly by the ministry's teachings on holy boldness. They aren't thinking small. Their theology of bold action translates directly into staggeringly bold organizational targets.
To reach that 500 million mark, the text shifts abruptly from a personal devotional into a very direct call to action.
They offer 3 specific avenues for individuals to plug into their organizational machinery. Whether you're interceding daily as a prayer partner, putting boots on the ground as a volunteer missionary, or funding the vision as a kingdom investor, there is a clearly defined, actionable role for absolutely everyone. Now, while the mission's scope is undeniably digital and global, it is physically rooted at their headquarters in Lagos, Nigeria. The text makes sure to provide dedicated phone and email support, which brilliantly grounds their expansive, heavenly goals with a very real, accessible, earthly address under the leadership of Ambassador David F. Nawefulu.
This part brilliantly illustrates how modern religious organizations scale their outreach. They aren't just relying on Sunday gatherings. They are utilizing highly specific WhatsApp groups. Yes, they even have a dedicated channel just for business tycoons, alongside their midnight prayer sessions. They are on Telegram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube. They are using the precise tools of the digital age to maintain an intimate, daily connection with their followers directly on their smartphones.
To coordinate this vast digital flock, the text publishes an extensive list of global time zones. Just imagine the logistical coordination here. From 12 a.m. in Nigeria to 4:30 a.m. in India to 7 a.m. in the Philippines. By mapping out these local prayer times, they are creating this continuous rolling wave of coordinated global prayer, 24 hours a day, crossing borders all over the globe.
Beyond the chat groups, the ministry also relies heavily on published literature to standardize their message. The devotional directs new followers to purchase specific ebooks via an e-commerce platform called Seller. This is such a smart step for the organization because it further solidifies the teachings for the individual believer while simultaneously creating a highly scalable distribution method for their core doctrines.
But, after outlining all the intricate logistics, the multiple WhatsApp links, the global time zones, and the e-commerce literature, the source text concludes by circling right back to its core spiritual motivation. The ultimate goal driving all of this modern machinery is ancient and singular, preparing the heart and life for the glorious return of Jesus Christ. Everything else we just discussed is simply a vehicle for this one profound mission.
So, the crucial question I want to leave you with is this. We've seen how a deeply personal theology of holy boldness fuels a 500 million soul mission using WhatsApp, TikTok, and global time zone coordination. As ancient texts and traditional doctrines increasingly meet these hyper-modern digital operations, how might this blueprint change the very nature of global outreach? Think about what happens when spiritual zeal is amplified by algorithmic scale. It's a fascinating intersection, and it's definitely reshaping the future of worldwide movements. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and
Thank you for watching. Please share, like, and comment. Your host, God7, David F. Wafulu.